Now let's take a look at how we can take these raw files that we have here and process them using Adobe's Camera Raw 4. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to jump into the Adobe Bridge here, and inside of the Chapter 3 project files folder you have several Camera Raw files right here inside of this folder. Now the first thing I'm going to do is come over here in Bridge and I'm going to filter out everything that's not a Camera Raw file. So I'll go ahead and click the Camera Raw filter setting over here on the left hand side. That way I only see the Camera Raw files here. It's also going to show me this folder because there are two Camera Raw files inside that DNG conversion folder, but we're not going to worry about those for the time being. Now what we're going to do is we're going to launch Adobe's Camera Raw simply by selecting all of these photographs, because we're going to be doing something to each one of these photographs. And we're going to open this inside Camera Raw by using Command R on the Mac, Control R on the PC. That will launch Camera Raw 4.0, and it's going to tell you at the top exactly what kind of camera was used right off the bat to shoot these images. So that's right off the bat. It tells you this is a Canon EOS Rebel XT that was used to shoot these particular images. And so what we're going to do is we're going to maximize this Camera Raw window, and we're going to do that simply by hitting the F key on my keyboard. That's just going to give me a full screen preview of this Camera Raw workspace here. So now let's talk about how to start setting our white balance for images. For instance, this image down here, this tunnel.cr2, which should be at the bottom of your preview window over here on the left hand side. What we're going to do is we're going to adjust the white balance of this image. Now, what white balance is essentially the temperature of the light at what time this particular image was shot. Now this image was shot on a cloudy day in New York City, so it's obviously very, very cool. And so what we need to do is we need to warm this image up, and we need to make sure that the white balance is absolutely correct so that we get a more accurate preview of our color and have an overall better photograph. So what we need to do first is come up here, and I'm going to suggest that you start off this way each and every time you start to correct white balance here inside of Camera Raw, and just go through these presets here and see exactly which one corresponds to kind of the closest type of settings you had when you shot your original image. For instance, I know this was shot on a cloudy day, so if I come down here and I choose cloudy, you'll see here that Camera Raw does a pretty good job of going ahead and converting this image to a better white balance. However, it's not exactly correct, so there's one of two ways that we can really start to fix this. The first of which is coming up here and grabbing this little tool right here, which is the white balance tool. Now, if you know which portion of your image is supposed to be neutral, like for instance, I know that this column over here on the right hand side is a very neutral gray color. So all I have to do is click one time in here, and it automatically warms that photograph up to the correct temperature, providing that this column was indeed a neutral color. Now, if you do not click in an area that is neutral, you will really start to mess up your photographs. For instance, let's look if I clicked over here on the left. Let's say I clicked in here in this orange portion of the photograph. Right here, you'll see that my photograph automatically goes way too cool, and all of my whites and grays look extremely blue, and my oranges that are supposed to be here in the middle are extremely muted. So what you need to do is make sure that you're always aware of where your neutral gray areas are inside of this photograph, so that when you use this white balance tool, you don't run into problems like extreme warmness or extreme coolness. So that's how you use this little white balance tool. Always know where your neutral gray points or neutral white points are inside your image, and then use this to click and adjust the white balance just with that single mouse click. However, if that's still not enough for you, if you want more precise control, you can come over here and you can use these sliders over here, the temperature and tint sliders, which are going to allow you unbelievable control over this white balance. You can actually set the temperature of your white balance simply by dragging this slider. If you want your image to be warmer, simply drag the slider to the right, and that will warm your image up. You'll see here if I push it too far to the right, I get an overall orange cast to the entire image. That's because I'm introducing more warm tones than I am cool tones. So all the warm tones, such as the oranges and the reds, are overtaking that image and giving it that color cast. Same is true if I wanted to cool this image down. I could drag it to the left, and as I'm dragging it to the left, I'm introducing more of the blue tones to the image, and they're starting to overtake those red tones. So if I push it all the way to the left, you'll see I have this extremely neon blue image. That's because I've removed essentially all of the reds, yellows, and oranges from that image and taken it completely to the blue side of the spectrum. So I'm not going to do any extreme edits like this, but I'll push it back up here to probably about 1000. And 1000 looks to be pretty good. However, if I wanted to just push it a little bit more, because I do want this picture to have more of a warm feel to it. So you can really adjust this to your liking. You don't have to be exactly precise each time. You can just adjust this to how you want the image to feel for yourself. So I want this image to have a little bit more warmer appearance, so I can take that initial value that I set with that white balance tool and then just drag that slider over to the right a little bit, and that's going to give me a little bit more of a warm tone to this overall image. Now you can also come down here and adjust the tint of the image, which is going to remove or add green or magenta tones to your image. For instance, if you want less magenta in your image, take this slider and start dragging it to the left, and you'll start to introduce more of a greenish tone to your image. Now this is not something that you generally want to do, I don't think anyway, for warmer photographs. You don't want to introduce green into a photograph that's already supposed to be warm. So I would suggest if you have a warm photograph and you want to do anything with this tint slider, that you would drag it to the right. So let's drag this slider a little bit to the right, maybe to plus 25, and you'll see here that gives it an even more warm feeling, and it just overall improves the appearance of this photograph. So you can do this for any number of photographs that you have here inside of Camera Raw, and it's going to be a very effective way of making sure that you get the right look and feel of your photograph's white balance each and every time.